It's now a pleasure to talk to you about the Founder Series. And we're right on time for that. Super excited to have David Sternlight here. David is an incredible leader. He has had an incredible life. He's got a wonderful story. And our very own Rebecca Palmer is going to introduce him and tell you about him. This is our Founders Series, so it gives you an opportunity to learn more about his story. The first portion is an interview setting, and then we have a live interactive portion. So as you're listening, be thinking of questions you'll want to ask, and so that you can ask those during that time. So let's welcome Rebecca and David to the stage.
Thank you so much, Darren. Here's sound check good? So let me tell you a little bit about David Sternlight. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Cabeau. As you can see, he's also 6'8". And I understand a wingspan of 7.1 inches? 7.1, yeah. That's pretty incredible. So he started his career as a power forward and center for a basketball team in Tel Aviv. That's Maccabi, am I saying that right?
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Oh, very cool, Maccabi Tel Aviv. And in 2001, he helped his team, with that impressive wingspan, helped take his team to the FIBA Super League Championship. So we have a championship basketball player. Then, he moved back to the States and started, had a few other career opportunities and started Cabeau. But he's also taken on a new hobby recently and a new stage name. Every few months, I understand, you spin tracks as DJ Destination.
That's right.
In Southern California and around the world. So we've really got a triple threat here. CEO, basketball star, DJ. So let's take a look at Cabeau and let you guys get to know a little bit about it. Can you play that video, Jason? That seems so cool. And for anybody who travels regularly, I think you can already imagine how many benefits that would have, how much more comfortable that would make your flight. And I'm excited to hear more from you in a minute about how much you talk to customers to make sure that this really is the best travel pillow available today. But let's just jump in. Tell us about how you went from a basketball star to the founder of a successful startup.
First of all, thank you guys so much for being here, each and every one of you. I'm truly honored. Darren, the RevRoad team, thank you. Really appreciate your time. So I finished my basketball career in 2001. Had the opportunity, as Rebecca mentioned, to win the European Championship. Sorry. Is that better? Okay. I was fortunate enough to be on a fantastic team, the best basketball team I've ever been on Maccabi Tel Aviv. Like Rebecca said, we won the European Championship. I made a decision at a relatively young age to pull the plug on basketball and really get my feet wet in the business world. I've seen a lot of people, Americans, that were playing basketball overseas that were maybe 36, 37, 38 years old. And I'd seen them almost desperate for a job, and it was scary to me because these were guys that were, doing incredibly well financially at the highest level, who were, as their career was winding down, they were desperate to find a job on one of the teams. So I made what I looked at as a mature decision to start my business career. I didn't want to be like that. Thank you. Okay, I hope that's better.
Thank you, Tigran.
We're good? Okay, great.
All set up.
Okay.
Much better.
Thank you. Yes. I made a decision to really get my business career going. I was going to get married the year after that, and I wanted to get my nose figuratively bloodied in the business world at a younger age and be ready to hopefully do something more special as I got older, rather than maybe having a family and wondering what am I going to do now. So I started out purposefully telemarketing. I went from making 6 figures a year, tax-free, living in a flat overlooking the Mediterranean Sea with essentially all expenses paid, to earning $9 an hour, getting yelled at and cursed at on the phone, which was, obviously a very humbling experience. I really wanted to take away the advantages I had with my height and really my presence. So I decided to learn how to sell on the phone. And it was like I said, very humbling experience. For 4 months, I pushed myself. I was tired of the job after about a week of it, but ended up hanging in there for about 4 months till I really felt like I got close to perfecting the craft. And was fortunate enough to move on to the next position, which was outside sales, taking the next step up, really being there to really get to know people in person, understand really what it took to sell in person, and then took the next career step where I was offered a position with a friend as a startup in a company. The company was starting to do well, and the parent company ended up recruiting me to the parent company to be the director of sales. So I oversaw a group of about 40 to 50 people in the real estate industry in 3 states. And that's when I realized that the entrepreneurial bug really bit me. I was usually the kind of person that was first to work and last to leave, or certainly one of them. And I realized that there was a limit to where I could go within this company. So wanted to be more in control of my own destiny.
Well, it sounds like you're just kind of good at everything you do. Is that true? Or I mean, you mentioned you went to work early, stayed late. Do you feel like there's kind of a tenacity piece in there?
I do,
Something
Rebecca.
that's helped you be so successful?
Definitely. I feel like we're on this planet one time, and we're given opportunities to excel. And one of the things I believe my parents, especially my mom, taught me was to make the most out of what you have, to be grateful, to not be entitled, and to understand what it was all about. So yeah, I do believe that hard work is a big part of the success that any of us can have, and the determination to not take no for an answer.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think that's something all of our entrepreneurs here can really take to heart. And employees. I'm an employee of a startup, and that'll help me daily. So you went from this real estate position where you weren't feeling like, maybe you had as much control as you wanted, right? Yeah. And you decided to do something new. So how did that all come about? Yeah,
so my ex-wife and I decided to go out. Actually, it was more me driving the decision to try to find something either to buy or to start. And we came across a company in the gift industry. This was throughout the course of 2007. And I really liked the positioning of the company. I wanted to be in consumer products. After interviewing a lot of business owners that were selling their companies, I think I dwindled down to things I didn't want or that we didn't want to do. Yeah. And then found a position where we manufactured our products overseas, brought the products into the States, and then distributed it as a brand. And the company unfortunately closed escrow. We leveraged everything we had in December of 2007. And as you guys can recall, the economic downturn happened about a month later. Yeah. And before we knew it, we were down 40%. So You know, one of my favorite quotes of all time is "Smooth seas never made a great sailor," and this was a perfect example of that through many different challenges, and my determination. I finally realized after 2 years of essentially paying to work that it wasn't going to work out, and unfortunately had to declare personal bankruptcy in 2010. The good news is throughout the course of this time, Carmela, you said it best, you know, having mentors around me that really taught me to really where to focus on. I had a great meeting with a company that was about $100 million gift company in early 2008, and this gentleman told me that it wasn't necessarily about what I thought was the best product, but to really go out into the market and find out what people wanted. And so I committed myself to that, and fortunately had a great experience, which at the time was not a great experience, on Cathay Pacific on a flight from LA to Hong Kong, which, as some of you know, is almost 15 hours nonstop. Given my height and trying to compress myself into a sardine can known as an airplane, didn't quite work, and Cathay stuck me in middle seat economy. So what turned into one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life led me to purchase a U-shaped travel pillow, which I quickly realized on my trip back was not the solution. I spent about 18 months from April to October of the following year. This was April of 08 to October of 09. In going out and interviewing over 2,500 travelers to figure out what they really wanted from a travel pillow. And that was the impetus for the start of this company. And to tie everything together, the way it worked out was, as the other company was being given back to the bank in a really traumatic bankruptcy, personally for me and my family, rose from the ashes an idea and a concept with $20,000 total to my family's name, and that's where Cabeau started.
Wow, that is such a cool story. And you know, I love how you had that experience with sales, with talking to customers, just on the ground. It seems like that made a big difference in being able to create a real solution to the problem, the very common problem of uncomfortable flying situations, right?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
So I want to hear more about what you were able to do with $20,000. But first, I love the story of the name Cabeau.
Yes,
Tell us about that.
Thank you, Rebecca. The company, this was something that my ex-wife and I thought of, that we should really personalize the name. Our son, Luca, was born in September of 08, and his middle name is Beau, B-E-A-U. So we took the CA from Luca and his middle name and came up with the name Cabeau. I would say about 1% of the population could pronounce it properly. The French tend to love the name, and the French Canadians as well. Otherwise, we even have people call it Caribou. I don't know where the R is in that name, but it's commonly called Caribou. So that's how the name came about.
Oh, that is so cute. So how is... I say Cabeau. Is that right?
That's
How's
right.
it in French? Is that...
Yeah, it's essentially the
Cabeau?
same. Cabeau.
Something?
Cabeau.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I'll try to pronounce it correctly from here on out. Oh, so let's get back to that first $20,000 and how you were able to launch a product company just
Yes.
from that very small starting place.
Yeah, so obviously, and as some of you guys know who are entrepreneurs or have been, or hopefully will know when you do start your first company, there's a lot of risk involved. And, you know, it is a scary proposition, especially the first time you do it, not only because it hasn't been done before, you haven't done it before, but also because there's so many winding roads and challenges ahead. And still to this day, I'm still experiencing those. What we decided to do was to go to our first trade show, which was the largest travel goods show in the world, and have just enough money to not only file intellectual property
We filed a design patent in the United States and in China.
Wow.
And this is, again, through some mentoring,
Yeah.
and then had enough money just for one 20-foot container to be brought in of our products from China. So we really needed all of the stars to align. Everything else was on a shoestring budget.
Wow. So how did you get from there to reaching the wider market? Like, did you get a lot of press at the travel goods show, or run into a lot of distributors? What happened?
Yeah, we were fortunate enough within the first half hour of the show to have the largest mail order catalog travel magazine to stop by our booth, and they absolutely loved the product. So that was really the impetus of the first real order. Yeah, we certainly had some press as well with our shoestring budget to do whatever we could. We're certainly motivated, let's just say that. It felt like our back was up against the corner throughout the process of losing the other company as well as starting this one up. So it was certainly challenging, but we were doing everything we could with the budget that we had to get it off the ground. What was fascinating about the growth, and this is probably unique to especially the consumer product space, is up until very recently, we have never been considered as to be able to get a line of credit from a traditional bank because of the bankruptcy that my ex-wife and I had. So this was commonplace throughout the last 9 years or so, 8 to 9 years, where we would go to banks and talk to them about our financing needs and disclose that we have a bankruptcy on our record. And at the end of the day, a couple of months of due diligence, they'd come back to us. We love the company. We really like you, David. We like everything that you guys are doing. The financials are perfect, if not better than that. But you have a bankruptcy. And
after 2 months.
Yeah, so it's been a repeated process and certainly a challenge. The way we've been able to successfully do it, and just about everybody around me told me we couldn't do it this way, which is even more satisfying, that we ended up giving cash discounts to, as you mentioned, distributors in order to prepay us. And we utilize the profit to be able to grow the infrastructure of our company and eventually be able to offer terms to some of the larger players and retailers in the game on a global scale.
Wow, that is so impressive.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you feel like you had any kind of pitfalls along the way? Besides the bankruptcy, was there a time you made a wrong decision and had to kind of course correct or anything of that nature?
Yes, many times. I think this is a learning process, even for those, I'm sure the mentors in this room and the business owners in this room can attest. None of us are perfect, and we're constantly making mistakes. There's been a number of times where we did, the one that I could think of that was probably one of the largest potential mistakes was we decided to try to get into the direct response industry, the infomercial industry, without any knowledge of the infomercial industry.
Oh, wow.
So that was something, especially early on in the company's history, where we certainly learned a great lesson. I think the name of the game is not making mistakes. I think you certainly want to watch out for the pitfalls of making any catastrophic mistakes, but the name of the game is really how quickly you can adjust and not make the same mistake again. I heard this from someone a lot smarter than myself, and she told me, make mistakes, just make them new ones. And I've taken that to heart.
Ooh, I really like that. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I think we have some time now for audience questions. Hey, Seth, do you have a mic? We're running. Seth is our financial analyst, and he does a great job of talking about problem interviews and solution interviews, really getting close to the customer.
Yeah.
So Seth, let us know, what would you like to know from David?
Well, that was along what my question was about.
Great.
Your product has very, very specific and very nuanced features, it looked like. How do you get that out of a potential customer? And then 2, how do you communicate that to a potentially new customer? because like a lot of the really effective things seem to be just very, very subtle features that you have in your product.
Thank you, Seth. That's a great question. Again, this is still a learning process for me. We're constantly at this point relying on some of the best consumer research company. I guess there would be data collectors and analysts on how to get the most out of people. What I found is a lot of people don't know what they're looking for. And you guys know the story of Wayne Gretzky, who's considered almost unanimously as the best hockey player of all time. He wasn't necessarily gifted athletically. He wasn't the strongest guy on the ice. He wasn't necessarily the most skilled guy on the ice. Where he excelled was being able to know where the puck was going. And to answer your question, Seth, that's really the kind of nuances that we were looking for. Not asking generic questions, but really digging into what was it that they're looking for. One of the things that we heard early on, for instance, was, I want a travel pillow that's comfortable. Now, on the surface, that sounds like, okay, yeah, that's a good answer. But what does that really mean? And so we were really digging into those questions, Seth, and asking people, or I certainly was doing this, what do you mean by that? What does comfortable mean? Does it mean soft? Does it mean supportive? Does it mean that your head is not going to fall forward? And then we started getting answers, well, I don't like neck pain. Well, again, that's generic. What causes neck pain? Now, if you really thought about it, it would be obvious. But people don't go to that length of really digging into what causes neck pain. When we're sitting here or standing, our muscles are active. They're keeping our head, which is, as you know, fairly weighty for the support of our neck pillows. When you fall asleep, all your muscles are relaxing. So the gravity and weight of your head is going to pull your head in a place where it's not aligned. So what causes the neck pain is your head falling forward or to either side. You have a high seat back behind you. You don't need to worry about your head falling backwards. But what we really dug into was what is it that causes the neck pain? What is it? What does the word comfortable really mean? And in order to get that marketing message out, I still think we could do a better job of it, and we're working on that. It really is a matter of what sorts of media are currently accepted, and what sorts of media are going to be accepted, and to try, like I was talking about the Wayne Gretzky analogy, how do we figure out what is it that in another 3 to 6 months from now is going to be the most appropriate way to market this? Where is it that we really want to take this in terms of communicating our message? It really is about going out and talking to people that are in the know to be on top of it. I heard another saying in one of the groups that I go to, that I attend. I'm constantly trying to learn. It's a CEO coaching group that I attend. And a lady said this, and I thought it was fascinating because it's so true, and it really struck me. She said that never in the history of people have we moved as fast as we are now, and never will we move more slowly than we are now. And I found that fascinating. It's incredible, because the way that we're moving, it was only 10 or 15 years ago that none of us, unless we could afford it, had cell phones. Maybe 20 years ago. We had the blocks, these big block cell phones. Nowadays, I can't imagine not having my cell phone. It's the adult pacifier. And so where is the world going? And because it's moving as quickly as it is, all of us have to be on our toes and be able to adapt very, very quickly. So I hope that answers your question, Seth.
Thank you. I love the Wayne Gretzky analogy. I'm going to keep that in mind. AJ, it looks like you had a question. AJ's our marketing manager.
Hey, David. It's been great to learn about your company and hear about your journey. My question is, what do you see are the next big milestones for Cabeau? Maybe from a growth perspective, product perspective? along those lines?
Thank you, AJ. You know, it's an interesting question. You know, I think when it comes to, I mean, right now we kind of have the reputation as the travel pillow company. You know, initially it disturbed me a bit. You know, because I wanted us to be known as not only the innovators in our space, but also the innovators in many different types of spaces. And as our company matured, I learned to really embrace that, that we are experts in the space, and that product, because it is really, after luggage and bags, it's the best-selling product in the travel goods space. So, you know, after I finally did embrace that, I realized, you know, asking myself the question you just asked, AJ, where is it that we really want to go? And what's going to really define the company? And I realized that we made a mistake at one point a couple of years ago, maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago. One of the largest duty-free companies in the world asked us to create an entire line of travel goods, and we did so. And so we had luggage straps and luggage locks and you know, compression socks and all the other things that you might see on a typical I guess display in front of an airport store. But what we realized was that this didn't really feel right for the company, that instead of it being a company that was the #1 in the travel goods space, what we really wanted to be was be known as the Apple of our category. We wanted to be known as the innovators. And you know, it dawned on me at the time that just because all of our predecessors in terms of corporations before us really started to develop like the large duty-free store asked us to develop, in really just expanding our line into having a full array of travel goods products, that no one really makes the rules here. You know, we set our own boundaries on ourselves. So what prevents us from going into different spaces and to simply be known as the innovators? So we took that, and I could say with confidence that we're doing things at this point to really go into other spaces and really change the way people are looking at travel. You know, as you guys know, I'm sure all of you have traveled at some point, some of you extensively in your lives. It's an extraordinarily stressful experience. And it doesn't feel like, although there's been steps made to help the situation, it doesn't feel like we've taken major strides. And it's challenging. Every time, you know, we're booking a trip and we have to get to the airport on time, and we have all these things to manage, you know, on top of it, the everyday life that we have to manage. We're really going into the space of trying to de-stress travel as much as we can. So it's really about innovation at this point in making the travel experience better.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you. I think we have time for one more audience question. Darren? Oh, all right. He's prepared.
Yeah, I bring my own. David, you've been really successful. I think you're in over 1,400 retail outlets around the world, or something. No, 14,000.
I think that's right.
Yeah, 14,000 around the world. And you know, I travel a lot, and I've taken my family on a trip around the world and been on many, many flights. And I took your Cabeau pillow on my world trip, and it saved my life. It was awesome. Everybody wanted to take it, so I had to buy a bunch of them, and I still buy them. They're awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you, Darren.
I'm the beneficiary of what you've done. Tell this audience, how did you put in place your go-to-market strategy to scale? You know, because you've given us the origin story. You've told us how you came through that ordeal and kept going and persevered, and your tenacity got you through. How did you scale globally?
That's a really good question, and a challenging question as well. You know, there's multiple components to the answer to that, and thank you, Darren, for your kind words. You know, in the beginning, we really looked at this as we would take any business that we could for survival. And I expressed to you guys the challenges we've had from the financial side. As we grew and matured as a company, and I still feel like we're kind of coming out of the adolescence phase in the company's growth cycle. As we matured, we started realizing that working with the right customers was extremely important. And as some of you guys who are entrepreneurs know, there's different type of customers. There's customers that require a lot of your time, take a lot of your energy, are extraordinarily challenging, might have some integrity issues, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to have other customers, and some of them even the larger players, that are the complete opposite, that are wonderful to work with, that are fantastic people and human beings. And what we started to realize was, we really wanted to focus on those customers that we felt good with. And it wasn't just the customers, it was the vendors, it was the third parties, it was the suppliers we had overseas. We wanted there to be a good relationship, a collaborative effort. We heard that earlier. It's so important to be aligned, to have your interests aligned, to be with people that share your beliefs and core values. So that was one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is really being able to figure out how we could get out into the world. And there's really two schools of thought in the consumer products industry. One is to really try to focus on going direct. And what we realized early on is there's so many cultural differences. There's language differences. There's currency differences when you deal with companies outside of the United States. And we realized very quickly that the business model we preferred was to really find the right distributor partners outside of the United States, who already had the relationships with the retail partners in their countries and already spoke the language and knew the cultural differences. And again, we enrolled these distributors in prepaying us and gave them a cash discount to do so. So we incentivized them by allowing them to have much larger margins than they were traditionally used to, and incentivized them to bring on our line rather than, let's say, a competitor's line, or focus their energies on a non-competing line. But because they were going to make more money and have a higher margins working with us, this was something that was easy for them to take on. So we really were able to scale it up internationally by choosing that business model. And I highly recommend, especially in the consumer product space, but I would say in every space, if that's the way your business is going, to really consider that. Because although I really believe the world is getting smaller and smaller, and it's incredible how small the world is right now, there still are many, many differences in cultures and relationships and experience that these people have internationally. We went so far as to actually have a couple of domestic distributors as well that already had relationships in place with some of the biggest mass retailers in one case, and with the largest airport concessionaire in another case. We heard it earlier as well from Darren. Both of them on the surface are competitors. However, we were able to enroll them in understanding that partnering up would strengthen both our companies. And those two relationships are magnificent. So in terms of, there's one final piece that I could think of, and I'm sure there's others. It's really about your people. And if we don't have the right people, our company never would have grown, and we haven't had the right people. And the way I'm looking at it right now, and I kind of changed my philosophies, I think, as I mature as a business person, I still have a lot to learn, is it's my job as a CEO to make sure that my skills are at least commensurate or greater than the company's needs. So early on, we've hired some people that at the time were great fits. Yet, whether it was our lack of developing them or their own personal desire to grow as business people, it prevented them from really reaching that line that we needed them to reach commensurate with our company's growth. So we've had to make some difficult decisions on those people who, of course, we feel loyal to. These are people that, in some cases were with us very early on, that for whatever reason were entitled, weren't willing to grow. Certainly we can take some responsibility. I could take some responsibility for not putting enough effort into their growth. But at the end of the day, it's really what's in us, and we have to have the right people. And I as I'm growing as a business person, I'm realizing that experience in employees is very important. But what's more important to me is people who are committed to their word. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if they're reporting to me or I make a commitment to them. What matters is integrity. And when you have a commitment with someone, fulfill that commitment in the timeline which you agreed upon. And what I'm looking for now in employees is people that are true to their word. And that's what that means to me. That the people that aren't are going to tend to fall off. And there's a constant search for those that are. I truly believe you cannot have enough of those people on your team. And it really comes down to that. I've told people this in as kind of a related topic, that I don't know the first thing about electrical engineering. I'm learning, but I really am a novice in it. I would almost guarantee that if I was thrown into a place where I was forced to perform on an electrical engineering team, that I would be so determined to not be someone who's holding the team back, that I would learn through reading and modeling and watching, YouTube videos or whatever I had to do, that within 3 to 6 months I would be a very productive part of that team. And this has nothing to do with my experience in electrical engineering. Those are the people that we want.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. It sounds like, from grit to integrity to, just some good fortune as well. And just really a commitment to solving that customer problem. It seems like that's really made you into who you are today. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now I have one last kind of fun question I'd like to ask all of our guests. So what's something really fun, really exciting that your success has enabled you to do?
Thank you for asking, Rebecca, and great questions for those who asked. I believe that the true education in life is experiencing other cultures. This job, this company has allowed me to visit places that almost certainly I wouldn't have been able to visit without it. And just last week, it's commonplace now for me to be traveling to places like China and Hong Kong and the Middle East and Europe, and really have friends and colleagues all over the world. I'm so grateful for that experience, and yeah, that is fun for me. When I go on, it's always hard to not be sleeping in your bed and be with your family and friends. However, the growth I feel as a human being to really be able to see things from other people's perspectives is something that is invaluable to me.
Oh, that's great. And I guess your son would be about 10 now.
He is.
Is that right? Does he ever get to go with you?
He does, yeah.
Oh,
I've been able to take him, and I have, every time I go and he doesn't come with me, school is usually what's in the middle of that, but I absolutely have a commitment to continue to bring him places and allow him to experience some of the great things I've been able to experience over the last few years.
Oh, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think Darren has a small presentation for you.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
I'd like to thank David. You see how short I am. Get ready. Here it is.
I'm even shorter. Over here.
Thank you, Rebecca. We're so appreciative of all that you've done. And David flew up here from California to visit with us and to share his experience with each one of us. and that's where his company headquarters are. And we'd like to give you something to take back.
Thank you. Wow.
This is a nice travel bag that can definitely hold a Cabeau pillow, and then also a nice water bottle from RevRoad.
Thank
And
you.
David, just before you go, one of the things that really impressed me was one of the things that you do with your employees in volunteering. Could you briefly share that?
Sure. Thank you, Darren. So one of the, like Darren mentioned, it's really important to us, and where I see synergy and where it was really important for me when Darren invited me to come speak with you guys, and again, thank you for your time, was the synergy we have between us. It's extraordinarily important to Darren and all the companies at RevRoad to really give back to the community. And as much as it's easy to live our life relatively selfishly, and we can justify that as much as we want. We're all busy. In some of our cases, we have families. We want to take care of ourselves. We have to work. There's not a lot of free time to really be able to step back and say, what is it that is really important in this world? One of the best things that I can teach my son is that to be selfless, to make this world a better place. And what I found was for our employees, they're living their lives just like we are. They're very busy. There's justification for a lack of time. So it was really important for us to be able to give them a platform to be able to give back, to feel good about themselves, to know that this company is not just about making money, that this company is a way to really feel good about yourself and to do something that's more important than just doing this for business purposes.
Yeah, and you give them the opportunity to do some volunteering.
Yes, thank you, Darren. We close down our office once a month for about 3/4 of a day. And 2 people from our company, there are different 2 people each month of the year. They get to choose which charity the whole company is going to go out and give back to. So we've gone to homeless shelters, we've gone to kids' hospitals, we've done things for the military, and really across the board, gone to food banks, constructed food that's being sent out to those that are less fortunate around the world. And I'll tell you, our team, I look across the room every event, and the smiles on the team's faces are genuine. And it's fascinating because someone once told me that one day, closing the office for essentially one day a month, you're losing 1/22 of the amount of work you can do in a month. And I found a study that showed that by doing something that is uniting and feels good for the team operates so much more efficiently during the time they are working. And this is altruistic. This is something that actually, from a marketing perspective, we probably don't do enough of regarding it. This is coming from a place of giving back and making the world a better place. So thank you for asking, Darren.
Yeah. David, let's hear it for David.